What's happening, everyone? Michael Olivas here. I asked my future scheduled guests to adapt their advice and responses to current times. This is a COVID-19 special edition where I will ask entrepreneurs how this current epidemic is affecting their business and life and what their advice is for you. I get it, Life Nation. I'm not just a podcast host. I'm an entrepreneur, just like you. My companies are having to pivot and innovate just to stay afloat, and I'm hearing it from guests and colleagues alike. Stay motivated, refocus, and trust me that those companies and individuals who truly strategize to get through this will flourish when it inevitably comes to an end.
You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Mike Olivas.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. Today, we're going to be interviewing Mary Shores, who is a powerhouse CEO, communication expert, and best-selling author who helps people change their words to fall back in love with their work and their customers. All right, Mary, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So tell our listeners something interesting about yourself and also where you're calling in from today.
Well, I am calling from Champaign, Illinois, and I was born in San Diego. But one thing about Champaign is it's a really cool sounding name, but the truth is that it's the land of cows and cornfields. So it's kind of a quiet area, but we do have a huge university here, which is the Champaign, Illinois. It's a Big Ten school. It's a big engineering and accounting and agriculture and also veterinarian school. And so something interesting about me is that, I guess one of the things I find that I'd like to share is that about 10 years ago, I really took a deep dive onto a spiritual path.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that. How did you jump into the spiritual path or a deep dive? Did it kind of come with something that happened in life?
That's such a great question. I think that it was always there. I was always questioning things as in terms of my religion or things that I had been taught in church, and it was probably led by a natural curiosity, but then coupled by like a fascination with things like the cosmos, really wanting to understand how things in the universe work, and also an interest in things like quantum physics,
Sure.
as well as neuroscience. So kind of like my spiritual practice is the one thing that has been able to bridge all of those things together, because I really believe that science and spirituality are talking about the same thing, but they're just using two different languages.
Awesome. Well, given, our current situation, and we'll kind of talk about how we might be able to obviously connect all these dots with your expertise as well. With COVID-19 outbreak and its effect on so many entrepreneurs that are listening today, as well as just obviously business owners worldwide, can you share with us how this has affected your business personally?
Absolutely. And I've been in business a very long time, so 21 years. So this is not my first economic crisis that I have survived through. And one of the things that I know to be true at my company is that we're a debt collection company, and debt collection gets hit a little bit differently in terms of when there's an economic downturn, because when people don't have certainty about how they're going to take care of their basic needs, such as toilet paper, for example, then they're not exactly interested in paying their past due bills. Now, a lot of people don't understand that debt collections is like a crucial part of the economy. I just was reading an article talking about how we contribute $347 million a year. I mean, that's just in one state. That was in the state of Massachusetts.
Wow.
$347 million a year just in that one state alone. And so it's a vital part of the business process. It's a vital part of our finances in the country, but it's also very difficult to be able to collect when times of great fear and uncertainty are happening.
What are some of these decisions? In terms of what you've done within your own company during COVID-19, have you had to make any tough decisions in terms of your own current business?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the first things that I did, and it's more, it's what I did in my business, but it's also what I'm doing to show up in my industry because I believe that this is an opportunity for all business owners to understand that we're leaders and that we have to rise up. We have to see this as a challenge and an opportunity to rise up. There's always a silver lining, and in this case, the silver lining came in a larger than we've ever seen in my lifetime
Yeah.
stimulus package that is $2 trillion. So, one of the first things that I did at the beginning of all this was I took a look at my policies and I wanted to be ahead of the game in adjusting my policies and procedures to benefit the consumers that we were collecting from. So, this looked like things making it number one, hassle free for anyone who wanted to call and they needed to miss or defer a payment. So, that was just like, no questions asked. If somebody needs to miss their payment, absolutely fine. The next thing that I did was I extended the time that we typically report to credit. So in my industry, as you know, and I just want to say, like, there's totally a negative stigma to collections in general, but my mission has always been that I want people to feel good about the fact that they're paying their debt instead of swimming in shame and unworthiness for having a
Sure.
debt. So just
Sure.
kind of share, like, that's my core curriculum for my business. And all the decisions I had to make was through that filter. How can I make people feel good? So we extended our credit reporting period, meaning that we're not going to report any negative information on any consumer until at least June 1st. And I'm not even sure I'm going to do it then. I'm just going to reevaluate it because what's really on my heart is to give consumers a full 90 days to pay their new balances before that goes as a derogatory mark on their credit report. And then the next thing we did was allow people to set up temporary arrangements. That way they can make smaller payments now. And once all this financial stuff gets sorted, they can make bigger payments in the future. Now, switching over to my employees, it was really important I use this thing called the OODA loop. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Mike, but
Yeah.
it's a military strategy and it stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And so in the very early stages of COVID, one of the things that I was out there telling everyone that would listen to me is we all need to just slow our roll.
Yeah.
People were like trying to make decisions quick, quick, quick. And I know that as a leader, we need to be adaptable and we need to pivot fast. But what you don't want to do is make decisions so fast that you come to regret them in the future. So, for example, I had other companies that I found out they were laying off all their employees before even finding out what the stimulus was about. And turns out, like, you don't even really get that stimulus money unless you keep people working. So, by slowing down and using OODA, observe, taking in all the possible data that is around you. Orient, which means, taking a moment to ground yourself and how does this information, this data that you're taking in, how does that affect you in your business and what you need to be focused on? And then you make the decisions. I think so often we observe and act, instead of observe, orient, make decisions, and then act. So I wanted communication to be at the highest level with my team. So I wanted them to know all their options right from the beginning. So the first thing we did was we cut hours just a little bit for each person
Yeah.
so that we could adjust. But then our governor, since I'm in the state of Illinois, we're one of the states that got completely shut down. So what that means is nobody could come to work. But I already knew this was coming. So I started looking at each person and I used a technique called SBAR, which means situation, background, assessment, and recommendation. So what I did was I did an SBAR on every employee and every team to decide who was essential,
Mhm.
and the definition of essential in these times is that they are necessary to protect the value of the business.
Right.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of confusion about that, but this means your payroll people. This means, performing the basic duties so that your company doesn't go out of business or cause any compliance issues for that matter. So I chose a handful of people that I felt really need to be in the building. And those people were given criteria of how to work and how to keep themselves safe, because my number one goal was safety. My number two goal was make sure that we stay in business at the end of all this. And my number three goal was do not lay anyone off. So
Yes.
far, I'm keeping with all those goals. So we figured out who was essential. We pulled our collectors off the phone as soon as the shelter in place order went. So there was no outbound calling. I reached out to the clients and I let them know what my COVID response was. I have 4,000 clients. So it was very important that I keep in contact with them as well. And you know what? That worked beautifully. I also created a COVID stimulus task force, which was 3 of my smartest employees. Because I'll be really honest with you, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs probably feel the way that I do. I can't stand reading things like government laws and filling out
Sure.
forms. That is the thing. I would rather bang my head against a wall than
Right.
research that kind of stuff. So I took my 3 smartest people who are the most organized and I had them do it for me. And of course, I applied for the stimulus the first day. And as of the day we're recording this, it's April 14th, and my money's getting deposited by the end of the day today.
That's great. And which program for that? Is that PPP?
That is PPP, yes.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you're
thing,
right.
Easiest thing to apply for. It
Yeah.
was a complete no-brainer. I don't know what I see all these articles. People are having a hard time. Maybe that's, an indication of your relationship with your banker.
What's happening, Life Nation? Michael Levis here. This is a time to do the right thing, not the profitable thing. I'm giving away COVID-19 business strategy sessions for free. I promise to give you my honest advice and coach you on a strategy that I feel would be best for the longevity of your business. I'm not asking you for your money, but in the interest of being able to help as many people as I can, I am asking you to be ready with your 1 to 2 specific questions so we can jump right into it. Go to michaellevis.com/coaching and simply schedule a call on my calendar. That's MIKEOLIVAS.com/coaching. It's a little bit. I think there's a lot to be said about those that are being approved quickly that have the simple history versus those that might not have the history of payroll, the W-2s, the 2.5%, or sorry, 2.5% or times, not percent, 2.5 times your payroll during those specific months. And they changed it a couple of times, but you're right. The process is not hard. We are applying for my companies as well, not getting deposited that quick. But I know a lot of people are just kind of waiting. What specific advice would you give to current business owners listening who had to let, employees go because a lot of them, maybe, for example, your business likely was hurt with cash flow, because if you're stopping payments, right, that means, which is amazing, which we had to do in my company as well, as a national group travel company, like no money for a very long time, likely, by the way, not just 2 or 3 months, likely 7 months, likely 8 months, if we're rolling the dice that there might be a big fall season, hopefully, where people want to get outside. But what advice would you give to those that are barely staying above water, that have to wait it out, that are waiting on deposits from either the government? Anything on your thoughts on what you were able to do and strategize?
I have so many thoughts on that. We might have to do a part 2. So the first thing is, speak, because I'm hearing you ask a lot of questions, and I want to speak to everyone's industry and the cutting off of the cash flow, because that is certainly got to be top of mind for everyone.
Yep.
In fact, I got some calls for some other travel companies that were involved with like timeshares and stuff. And it was like, how do we get these people to make payments? We don't want to have to take any legal action against them. So because I'm an expert debt collector, I have a lot of people reaching out to me about this very thing. So one of the first things I would say is, when you're working with your customers and your clients and you're trying to preserve some cash flow, create some very low risk offers for your customers. Make it super low risk, because the more low risk you can make your offer, the more likely it is that they're going to say yes. And believe it or not, there's going to be plenty of people looking for deals. The reality is, in this climate, we have a big silver lining here that we don't typically have, and that's the stimulus package. If I understand things correctly, the average person that goes on unemployment is actually going to be receiving more money on unemployment than they were actually making. Now, I don't know know, on the charts to say what's the tipping scale to, but I know a lot of people out
That's
there
correct.
are actually going to be profiting from this steroid unemployment. And then the other thing is that through the payroll protection program, that means you have to pay your employees whether they're working or not. So find other things for them to do. Like what can they, what webinars can they take? Where can they dive in on, that's still an investment that you're making, even though you got the money from payroll protection. But where can you put them investigating the opportunities for the money to come in? And, to be honest with you, a lot of the companies that I'm consulting with, their revenue's actually going up, not down, because they're following the specific like communication strategies that I've been teaching them, which is all about how do we really respond, understanding that consumers are under a lot of great extreme fear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that we've touched on a few things, and the communication aspect is one of them that I wanted to ask you about: how to communicate with current clients. How have you been able to communicate with also employees during an epidemic like this?
hmm It's really about getting ahead of people's needs. So
Okay.
I am all about what's called fears, feelings, and needs. Because, back in the day, like in my industry, when things first got started 100, not 100 years ago, but, they were really dealing with a lot of baby boomers. And baby
Sure.
boomers make decisions based on responsibility. And millennials and younger make decisions based on how they feel about something. So really tapping in to and giving consumers, clients, employees, giving everyone opportunities to talk about how they're feeling. And that starts with asking questions. If you're talking to a team member, and we did this, it's just to say, how are you feeling about your finances over the next few weeks? Let's talk about what your needs are. So for example, if somebody voluntarily furloughed and applied for unemployment, they may not understand how that affects their, say, their health insurance, because now they're not paying their premiums because their paycheck is coming from unemployment instead of coming from payroll.
Right.
So, going back to that SBAR, looking at every situation differently, I would also add to that, when you're making these very low risk offers, if you think about how can I communicate in a way that gets my clients to support me and make an offer that is super low risk, you want to present that offer using what I call a seed of happiness. That means you want to use positive language to tell them what their offers are. You'll be happy to hear that we've created this special program during this time of crisis, and we don't want you to miss out on this temporary opportunity. It works very, very well. As far as the fears and getting people to talk about their fears, I think it's really important to validate the fears, to say, I know, I understand how you're feeling. So many people are telling me the exact same thing that you are, so you are not alone. You are not alone is a powerful phrase that can create a connection. So right after you say, so you are not alone, you'll be interested in hearing that our company has made these temporary solutions available to you. And so whether you're talking to an employee, whether you're talking to a team member, whether you're talking to a client or a customer, this is the type of languaging that will really get you a long-term relationship out of a crisis.
I think that's great advice for those out there listening that have, whether it's employees and or clients, to just have a positive light to it, right? I mean, because that's in the world of just consistent negativity and negative content, and looking at if the curb is being flattened or not, right, on a daily basis. It's
like to the point of obsession
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah, exactly. It's just turn the TV off, focus on strategy. You've done it. I've done it. I hope that other companies, and I did a top 10 of what to do now recently, and we launched that as well on the podcast, and very much focuses on exactly what you're discussing as well. So it's great to see. The idea is sometimes you just got to sit down and think, if I cut this, then what? What is necessary, right, in the business? I mentioned things like just taking your P&L in a spreadsheet format and just making it to all the way down to that granular level, and just jotting down what's necessary on what's sell and what's not on the next, and just start going down excellent subscription models. Is your internet too fast because less people are on it, all the way down to that level? Everything can help people once you start breaking that down. And honestly, it's going to really help them in the future too. Like, wow, if I can keep my fixed costs a lot lower if X, Y, and Z. You keep the people and you take opportunities where like maybe there's an employee that you don't think is the right fit and it hasn't been the right fit. Perfect timing to make sure that you can focus on who is key, right? And who's dedicated within the company. I think those are some great advice also that you gave. Is there any support or resources out there that you found, Mary, that you felt is kind of good to mention today? Any support or websites that you've been able to look at, or what you've been reading on how to kind of come up with these strategies?
Well, I've been putting all of my stuff, all of my tips out on my blog, maryshores.com.
Awesome.
So anyone can read it there. What I've been doing is I've been taking all of my strategies and making them into PDFs that I've been sharing on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
So I love LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, just type in Mary Shores. When you see my picture, send me an invite. I'd be happy to connect with you. I would also say that, somebody told me early on during this, I was actually in Hawaii when early news of the coronavirus started to get hot in the United States. And a very good friend of mine gave me this piece of advice. She said, when you're reading the news, look to the academics. She said, sometimes, if you're watching CNN or you're watching Fox News, you're really getting the information through their lens of perception. And that has really helped me, because when you're seeing one article that says, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wash your groceries, don't wash your groceries, it's just, it's better to do a vaccination. Oh, it's better to have herd immunity. She really said, look to the academics. And so that's what I've been doing. So I've been really paying attention to information coming from trusted sources that are backed by academic research, such as John Hopkins, such as, actual virologists who know what they're talking about. And, another thing that's been really strange in this environment is all the conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know.
geez.
I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm just like, listen, folks, the conspiracy theories are not healthy for our mental stability right now.
No.
And I encourage people, don't go down that rabbit hole.
I agree. It's easy to as well, especially when they're just sitting at home watching things, or then they start going through YouTube. And the conspiracy theories some are very far-fetched, but you're right. I wanted to ask a final question from you out of and I appreciate all of the background of how you actually specifically were able to not only keep your company going and thriving, but also just being able to communicate with customers, your employees. Those are some great takeaways that I want to make sure people jump on the show notes and type in Mary Shores when this airs, and you'll take a look at seeing all the sound bombs and breakdown that we give there. And also, of course, some links to our website. Out of all your successes and failures, Mary, and of course, during this process as well, what's the one piece of parting advice that you'd give to the Business and Life listeners today?
Well, I love this. So I'm going to tell you this. When you're talking to anybody about this, always talk in terms of solutions. So try to avoid talking about the problem and always talk about what you can do instead of what you can't do. So what I mean by that is, be prepared with your solutions ahead of time. So whether that's an employee, that way, as soon as you get on the phone with, Jane, you can say, here are your options. We've looked at this. You can take a voluntary furlough and go on unemployment. We will have your job preserved for you when you get back. Another option is, we'd love for you to stay on the payroll, and your paycheck is protected by the payroll protection program. And so always talking in terms of solutions really gives people hope, because one thing that goes beyond and has a bigger impact than fear is actually hopelessness. Because when people get to that level and they're feeling hopeless, that means they're almost like they're losing hope to the point where they don't care what happens. And so fear drives escape, but hope drives positive action. And so when you can talk in terms of solution, you're actually putting some seeds of hope into the mind of the person you're communicating with. So I really encourage you to think about how you can do that.
Mary, awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time today and dropping some of those great knowledge bombs that we just got.
My pleasure.
Life Nation, you got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Olivas, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.